Hello everyone, I'm Bable Jonathan and this is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital. Douala Anglophone detainees allegedly molested by security or forces of law and order. They have been transferred from the Buea Central Prison to the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. Crime wave on the rise in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Police officers continue arresting people involved in various crimes every day. In this newscast, we're going to talk about some alleged bandits who had been dealing in the cap area, notably making away with the caps of some individuals in the economic capital, Douala, after dealing with them severely. Those were top stories. Thanks for joining us in this edition of the news on Equinox Television. Some 18 detainees transferred from the Buea Central Prison in the southwest region of the country to the Kondengui Maximum Security Prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, have been allegedly molested by prison guards. This was disclosed by a barrister at law, as we hear in the following report compiled by For me, Armstrong Sanda.
In a soft copy document dated Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018, Barrister Kongo Felix Agbobala, President of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, describes the torture of some 18 Anglophone detainees in Yaoundé as brutal. The 18 detainees were ferried from the Buea Central Prison in the southwest region of the country to the Kondengui Maximum Security Prison in Yaoundé, where they are currently detained in Kosovo, a section of the Kondengui prison. The barrister says these detainees have been kept in tight chains and being brutally tortured by prison guards who repeatedly call them Ambazonians. He added that some of them are suffering from injuries, with one having a broken hand and another a decaying wound, in what he termed a repeated pattern of treatment upon Southern Cameroonians and alleged separatists. The human rights advocate says none of their rights are being respected, the presumption of innocence seemingly inexistent, and authorities act with impunity. He further revealed that the brutal torture of these new detainees by prison guards in Yaoundé prompted a strike action by other Anglophone inmates who felt the pains of their brothers. The same document says the strike action caused the registrar of the Kondengui Maximum Security Prison to react by disclosing that the order to place the said detainees in chains came from hierarchy. Our efforts to get corresponding images from the Kondengui Maximum Security Prison were fruitless.
Have been arrested for allegedly drugging taxi drivers before making away with their vehicles. They were arrested by elements of the Bonanjo Judicial Police here in the economic capital, Douala. Franklin Mwabi has the details.
Two bandits have been apprehended by the elements of the Judicial Police in Bonanjo, Douala. Fotso Kwanang, 38 years old, and Abdraman Jibril, 42 years old. They were arrested for car theft after intense investigations by the police. Victims of the robbery testify of the ordeal they went through. Many of the victims, who happen to be taxi drivers, say they always meet Fotso coming from a bank. According to the victims, Fotso, one of the bandits, will take them on hire for a full day and give them false information about himself. He told me his father is a colonel and a sergeant at the Douala military base. He pretended discussing with a business partner on phone, mentioning huge sums of money. He talks like a business tycoon. After chatting with them, Fotso will propose food and drink to taxi drivers. He asks us to go and get a drink. He asked me what I would drink, and I ordered for water. I told him I don't drink alcohol. I take just beverages. Unknown to the taxi drivers, Fotso had drugged them. Immediately I felt sleepy, dozed off for 15 minutes. When I woke up, I could not find him. I did not see my vehicle. Everything on me was taken. It was at the drinking spot that I lost consciousness, and he made away with my car key and my phone. I only discovered myself in the hospital. After I took a sip, I only recovered fully 1 week after to find out that my car, driver's license and car documents had disappeared. Fotso, with the help of another driver, according to sources, often transports the stolen vehicles to Yaoundé, where his retailer, Abdurrahman Jibril, sells them to Gabon. Still in the line of theft, 2 Fei men were equally arrested at the judicial police in Bonanjo. These men claim to be dealers in car business. Once the money is paid to them, they make away with it. They were arrested with a bag of money supposedly from their victims. Both men claim to know nothing about the charges on them. Many persons remain bewildered and others raising eyebrows as to how those stolen vehicles cross all police checkpoints to Yaoundé and then Gabon without appropriate documents.
Elements of the Rapid Intervention Battalion in Bakassi Peninsula, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon have been encouraged for their efforts in protecting the country's territorial integrity. Fowang Lawrence, the senior division officer for the Indian Division, made the remarks during an epaulette award ceremony. Derek Jato Asmo.
The newly promoted element of the Rapid Intervention Battalion B, based here at the Jabane Island camp in Bakassi, are gearing up to receive their epaulets, moving them to higher ranks. And Mr. Fowang Lawrence, the senior divisional officer from Indian Division, has also sailed to the island to preside over the epaulette award ceremony. And after reading both the presidential decree and the ministerial decision confirming the state recognition and reward of hard work that saw 15 sergeants and 4 officers moved to higher ranks, the ritual was performed, and to the laureate, they are aware of the huge responsibility and that which they will not fail.
It's often said that responsibility given to a man, the responsibility that is given to a man is equal to his task.
And as the Commander-in-Chief for the Indian Division, Mr. Fowang Lawrence, also used the occasion and thanked the entire B Data for their effort in protecting the Cameroon territorial integrity.
And their reaction has always been appropriate to those of attackers. And I want to say, if not of these elements here, I'm sure we would have registered so many casualties. To the colonel, my brother, and all congratulations, you have the courage and the encouragement of the state that I present here.
Derek Jato reporting. A similar ceremony took place in the OPEC city of Limbesi in the southwest region of the country, where some 12 military personnel over the weekend received epaulets in their different ranks, and the event was presided over by the senior division officer for the FACO division. Maimo Davidson has more.
Taking place at the Manga Williams Avenue amidst tight security due to the ongoing Anglophone crisis on Sunday the 1st of July. From the military veterans, the gendarmerie, the Marines, Marine Commandos, Special Unit of the Marines to the Infantry Battalion of the Elite Unit of the Cameroon Military, the B, they all answered present as demanded by military regulations to grace the occasion. The highest ranking officer awarded is a staff sergeant, followed by 2 senior warrant officers, 1 warrant officer, and 8 non-commissioned officers, giving a total of 12 military personnel awarded epaulets of different ranks and files. One senior officer, Lieutenant Bindank Ngwema Aurelie, decorated with the Public Force Medal for his dedication and hard work in saving the nation.
In the name of the President of the Republic and by virtue of the powers conferred upon us, I decorate you with the Public Force Medal.
The ceremony presided at by the Senior Divisional Officer for FACO, Ngamba Emmanuel Odo, supervised by the Commander of the Military Garrison in Limbe, Lieutenant Colonel Sone Emmanuel from the Naval Base, saw the troops commanded by Commander Amogu Jean-Marie from the elite unit of the Cameroon military, the B.
Ahead of elections to be organized in the Republic of Cameroon this year, the United Nations organization is stepping up efforts to upgrade the practice of journalists and get the profession rid of malpractices that could always provoke violence during elections. And some close to 50 journalists from the center, littoral and south regions of the Republic of Cameroon are taking part in an ongoing workshop here in the economic capital Douala, focusing on the coverage of elections and the promotion of peace or peaceful elections in the country. We have details in this report.
Practice of journalism in Cameroon is punctured by several irregularities and flaws committed by some practitioners in the discharge of their duties, and the result is partisan reporting in violation of core principles like objectivity, balance, equity, and truth.
Since the beginning of the multi-party politics in Cameroon, you bear witness with me that our media landscape one time became more of supporters than reporters. When they fuel violence, when they tend to discriminate between political parties, they are sowing seeds of discord that will, of course, grow into violence after the election.
This is why, ahead of elections in Cameroon this year, 5 United Nations organs have organized a capacity-building workshop in Douala on media coverage of elections and the promotion of peaceful elections in the country.
The aim here is to ensure a smooth and peaceful elections in Cameroon this year. And that is the aim of the United Nations, to target stakeholders who are society builders, who are those who educate the masses to be empowered first of all. But we're not touching this as journalists, they will relay useful information that will ensure a peaceful and transparent election.
As far as elections are concerned, we want to help journalists in reinforcing their capacity to be for the coverage of elections operations. Journalists should not substitute themselves to the other institution existing. They should not take the place of the Constitutional Council. They don't have to take the place of ELECAM. They have to play their role as media men, give the good information, give the right information, and make sure that they don't put fuel on the fire.
Close to 50 private and public media journalists from the center, littoral and south regions are equipped with tools for better reporting and presentation of TV and radio programs.
So far, I've grabbed a lot from this seminar, particularly in terms of how to avoid tricks played by politicians and members of the government to have journalists into their nets.
It is incumbent on us to be very careful in the way we are reporting elections. We have been reporting elections in this country, but how have we been reporting these elections? So those are the things we're looking at.
Meantime, the job of journalists in Cameroon is hampered by many challenges, including difficult access to information.
We have a lot of difficulties, protection of journalists and access to information. Most often, those who are supposed to protect us abandon us on the scene of action simply because we don't correlate with what they have at hand or what they want us to say.
Africaphonie has prepared a document on the Access to Information Act that needs to be tabled in Parliament and that needs to go as a law.
The 3-day workshop will end with recommendations aimed at upgrading the media landscape in Cameroon. Coming up, the smart side of the World Cup. Welcome to the smart side of the ongoing 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia. Smanjikan Gebre, you're welcome.
Good evening, Babila, and good evening to the numerous televiewers who are watching us this moment out there. I don't know where they are looking, but there are so many of them watching.
We'll begin with yesterday's encounter, England versus Colombia.
Yes, England versus Colombia. We came here on set when the first match of the day, Sweden-Switzerland, finished. But England versus Colombia was the last quarterfinals, or say knockout match that was played yesterday. And it was a very, very combative game. It was a very, very mouth-watering encounter. Harry Kane was the first person to hit in a goal for England. And of course, we had the Colombian side that also equalized after the Hurricanes goal. And just to note, that goal for Colombia came in the dying minute of the game. That was some few minutes to the end of the game. It was a happy moment for this man, James Rodriguez, who was sitting back, and when the goal finally came, he was a happy man. But when the first half ended and even extra time, it was 1-1. They had to go to penalty shootout, and penalty shootout, it was Colombia 3 and England 4. It was a happy Three Lions team that ran to be happy, after the victory. James Rodriguez, very frustrated. Fans of Mexico, Colombia, also frustrated, while fans of England were so happy at the end of that game. So the game ended in favor of England, 1-1 on regular play time, and of course it was England that continued on that tournament. Now there is one main man we are going to talk about this evening. He is none other than Harry Kane, who has been making a lot of news out there. Harry Kane should be recalled. He is one of those persons who has made a lot of news. He is now the first player to score 3 penalties during a single edition of the World Cup. The only person to have done this was Stoichkov of Bulgaria in 1994, who actually did that. And just to note that the same Harry Kane is moving up the ladder. Who knows, he might just be the person to get the golden boot. Now, talking about the goals of the tournament this far, to note that at least 31 goals have been scored in the course of the first phase of this World Cup. Out of 146 goals scored, 31 of the goals have been scored in Russia. That is, they have been scored after 80 minutes of the game. And 28 penalties have also been awarded in Russia, more than any other World Cup. And it should be noted that 20 of these penalties have been transformed into goals, and own goals too have been scored in this World Cup. Now, to note that the Golden Boot Award, we are moving steadily but slowly to the end of the competition. Harry Kane is still topping after his goal yesterday through a penalty. It is now Harry Kane that tops the Golden Boot, the road to the Golden Boot, with 6 goals. Romelu Lukaku is still behind. He's still in the competition with 4 goals, but Cristiano Ronaldo is already out of the competition with 4 goals. So those are the top 3 strikers of the World Cup, though 2 are still in competition. 1 is out of the competition. Now, there was one great guy who made England very, very successful yesterday. He is called Jordan Pickford. Jordan Pickford is the goalkeeper of England. He became the first English goalkeeper to have saved a penalty shootout in a major tournament since David Seaman did that in 1998. That was during the 1998 World Cup. So Jordan Pickford repeated that feat. That was after David Seaman, who saved a penalty in 1998 World Cup. So he became one of those talents in the World Cup. And one other person that we looked into him this day is this man that they call Yerry Milner. Yerry Milner is one of those that people will not know, but he's the first player to score 3 goals with his head in the same edition of the World Cup since Miroslav Klose of Germany in 2002 edition. And it should be noted that Miroslav Klose scored 5 goals, and Yerry Milner is not an attacker but a defender who had scored in all 3 games that he has featured for these people that they call Colombia. Maybe we just
the fixtures of the quarterfinals quarterfinals.
The fixtures of the quarterfinals that we already have in the competition. We already know those who will be meeting on Friday. The teams are on 48 hours recess today and tomorrow. Friday, Uruguay will take on France, and we have Brazil that is going to confront Belgium. On the other side, we have Russia to take on Croatia, and the completed end is Sweden versus England. Finally, after the knockout phases, just like we did during this group stage, the best 11 of the knockout phase, we have Cavani as the main attacker, Neymar, Mbappe of France, Neymar of Brazil, Inui of Japan, Rakitic of Croatia, and Forsberg of Sweden. They are in the midfield, and we have Guerrero of we have Denmark, and of course Yeremina, Thiago Silva, Pavard of France, and of course Michel of Denmark, who is the goalkeeper. Those are the first 11 of what we saw after the end of the group phase. And of course, to tell you that several other things are happening. Maybe we'll be coming up with such other records in the course of a subsequent meeting. That will be tomorrow. Remember, the teams are on a recess today, and hostilities are going to resume on Friday with the knockout or quarterfinals phase of the competition. We are getting set to the semi-finals. To know that this far, we have just about how many games left? We have only a few matches left for us to actually get to the end of the tournament. So that is it for now, and to note that we had one main issue for us to talk. Maybe that octopus, maybe we'll finish with the octopus. There was an octopus, this is off the pitch event, an octopus that was killed after it predicted the score of Japan, the 3 scores of Japan during the group stages. Equal. He said Japan was going to, he actually said that Japan was going to lose to Poland, and he said Japan was going to win Colombia, and Japan was going to get a draw against Senegal. And this octopus, after predicting 3 straight results for Japan, the owner decided to kill the octopus and use it as a meal. That is in Japan. So that is what we gathered for you this evening for the smart side of the World Cup.
Thanks, Ebon Smart Dikangirwe. That was the smart side of the World Cup. Coming up in Talking Point, we are going to look at the role of journalists, notably during election periods in a country, the example of Cameroon. Thanks for joining us in Talking Point. I told you earlier that we're going to take a look at the crucial role of media practitioners during election periods in countries. Notably, in this case, we're going to be talking about Cameroon, that will be organizing some elections this year. And after the postponement of the legislative elections, perhaps the presidential and the municipal elections, and maybe the regional elections will be organized this year. And in this edition of the news, we are receiving in Talking Point Jean Njita. He is the National Information Officer for the United Nations Information Center in Yaoundé, the nation's political capital. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, you're organizing a workshop in the city of Douala, and this is ahead of elections that will be organized in Cameroon this year. And that workshop is focusing on the media coverage of elections and the promotion of peaceful elections in Cameroon.
Perfectly, as Raleigh stated, the UN is in Douala to build the capacity of journalists in reporting on elections. As Raleigh knows, elections are always a palpitating moment in the democratic life of a country, and past experience shows that election results have either been criticized, condemned, and worse still, that journalists have taken sides during the campaigns for this or that candidate. And the UN comes out to seek ways to improve on this system by building capacity of journalists on how they can report staying neutral, impartial, and of course spreading responsible journalism during this exercise.
Earlier on, we had a report in which you talked about partisan reporting that has been characterizing the practice of journalism in Cameroon for quite a good period of time now.
As you rightly know, as I stated earlier, journalism has not been very impartial. Of course, we know the political landscape. We at the United Nations, we thought it's good to get everybody on a flat terrain where the journalist does just his or her own job of that of being a media practitioner, to build a society, to educate the society on what elections are supposed to be, on talking with every stakeholder, be them politicians, the public, and of course anybody involved in the process. That the process is supposed to be neutral, it's supposed to be transparent. Because this is the aim of the United Nations, and it is funded on the Sustainable Development Goal number 16, which calls for peace, access to justice, and of course strong institutions.
Now, you're talking about journalists doing their job and only their job, particularly during elections. And I want to ask you the question, what is expected of a journalist, talking about some guidelines, rules that are supposed to be respected by journalists in their coverage of elections?
Journalists, as you rightly know, are first of all professionals who are trained with the code of conduct, which is called the ethics of the profession. So during elections, they are supposed to come out to expose this professional learning which they have learned, and of course, treat information with all impartiality, with all equity, and open their platforms or their media programs to all candidates. This is what we call professionalism and the respect of ethics. But once you step out of that and become partisan, which means taking side with a particular political party, a particular politician, you are no longer in the scope of your job. So the UN comes to remind them on how they are supposed to stay professional. We know you can always support your own party there in your mind and in your heart, but in line with your professional ethics, you should toe the line and do the job. Because we have seen in other countries where elections have been marred by violence, marred by a lot of bloodshed, just because the journalists did not do their job well. They have spread a message of hate. They have been we give a level terrain to everybody. We make sure that the message is treated and disseminated with all fairness. We prepare the grounds for elections results to be received in all peace and harmony.
Now, during elections, there are lots of happenings that are very sensitive and that could generate violence, that could generate hatred and conflicts. How should journalists manage this information? Should they not publish at all? Because just publishing an information could be a source of anger to the next person who may attack the other, and then it generates into something big.
We always say facts are very stubborn. In presenting facts, let the facts be the facts. Even we know we're in the era of social media, where journalists are not only working with traditional media. Even right there, if the information is verified and proven to be factual, if you process it with all transparency and professionalism, even those who are attacking or criticizing you, they will see that you are just doing your job. And there, for professionally, you are covered. But when you step out of this ethos, that's where the trouble comes. And we say, like educators, like those who mold society and who give it an opinion, let them use this forum or platform to build a new public that will be accompanying the various political stakeholders during election periods, to make sure that after elections, we should all, like a people, accept results and of course cheer the winners.
And talking about facts and the responsibility of journalists, are there some facts during elections that should not be published with regards to what it may provoke?
Let's say I'm a political campaigner or a political leader, and once I take you into my suit or in my team, by motivating you extra, by trying to woo you with some other gifts,
which are not in line with political ethics, then it means automatically who pays calls the piper, who pays calls the tune. So once you call the tune, you can no longer be impartial. Once somebody is sponsoring what you are doing or writing or giving you what to write, you can no longer be impartial. In that case, we say professionals should shun any gifts. They should say no to any act of corruption, because once the soul is corrupted, you are impartial. And that is a seed that you are sowing, which tomorrow will be a major crisis.
What about being transported to an event or a campaign, for example, by a political party?
All of that are all measures which we know are creating rooms for so many mix-up in our system. A journal is supposed to cover a political meeting, yes, but deployed by the media house, not carried by the political politician in his or her vehicle. Now, there you don't know what happens under the table or inside that car. We only say let journalists do their job and have the political strength to stand and say no to any act of corruption. For the act that they commit now are drivers of violence tomorrow. Once they give in to any political pressure or political figure, they are not doing good to society out there.
Now, is it advisable for a journalist to be a declared militant of a political party or even an official? We have some of them like that.
Unfortunately, that's what is happening. And I say unfortunate because a journalist is supposed to be a reporter and not a supporter. You cannot report judiciously when you are supporting a candidate. Already we know your article will be biased. We know all you say, even on a platform like this, will not favor this or that party. So you cannot be a professional and you are a supporter. Because our job is to educate the public, is to teach the public on all these issues surrounding elections. That's why during the workshop, we invited officials from ELECAM to redefine and explain to them what the electoral code says about elections. We brought staff from human rights to tell the various human rights of all those involved in elections. And of course, we have gender-sensitive areas. We want women to be very, very active in these elections henceforth, to respect the 50-50 by 2030. Therefore, you cannot be a supporter and report judiciously. That way we are drawing attention to the fact that for them to do their job effectively, let them shun all that will mess up the environment around them.
Are you saying that it is difficult and maybe impossible for a militant journalist to be objective, to be balanced in his reporting?
I would even say it's impossible. We have seen the case of the famous Radio Colin. We have seen in other countries like DRC, where media houses and journalists are for one candidate. And all they do is deploy all their strategies on supporting that particular candidate. Therefore, how can they be neutral? You don't know who is on the other side listening to your program. You don't know what the impact of what you are saying will cause on those who don't support their own ideas. Therefore, to do our job and remain credible, stay professional. And professionalism means respecting the ethics and, of course, the editorial policy of your media organ. Once you are in line with these conditions, of course, everybody will tend to appreciate you like a professional, which you are, and not a supporter. So we still call on journalists to be reporters and not supporters.
And this will go a long way to help achieve the objective of the United Nations, that of promoting peaceful elections, not only in Cameroon, but probably in other African countries as well.
If it was not crucial, member states could not have included it in the Sustainable Development Goals, especially goal number 16. As you rightly know, the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals were adopted in 2015 in New York by member states of the United Nations, following the post-2015 consultations that took place all over the world. And Cameroon, one of the countries that were used like for these consultations. Therefore, the capital importance of elections and peaceful elections in particular is just indispensable. We cannot downplay the impact of crisis, post-election crisis in Africa and other parts of the world. And it is not working well for anybody. We want to attain sustainable development by 2030, then we must fight against the drivers or those factors that can lead to crisis tomorrow. Once we preach peace, once we go in for smooth transition in all transparency, then people are there to the winners of elections, they will have made a progress. And that's the goal of the United Nations.
Are you also thinking about other aspects that provoke crisis, violence during elections, like corruption and other factors like rigging of elections?
That is why Sustainable Goal number 16 talks about peace, justice, and strong institutions. Strong institutions, which means everybody must be equal before the law. Institutions must be those that ensure transparent elections, so that everybody accepts. Therefore, we should all say no to corruption. We should say no to bribery. We should say no to any act of violence. And we know that you, like journalists, who are the shapers of opinion, with the strength of your microphone, with the strength of your report in your newspaper columns, we can make progress. We can educate the public on how to maintain a peaceful environment during elections. We can also call the government to account on the action and the steps that they take to ensure that elections are fair, free, and transparent.
All right, your last word before we go to journalists and maybe to government as well.
Just to say that the UN is there to accompany the government to be sure that 2018 elections come and pass in a very peaceful, transparent, and of course, fair way. That we should all create that enabling environment whereby everybody, be them politicians, be them media practitioners, be them other actors of civil society, we all put our energies together to make sure Cameroon remains peaceful after this crucial 2018, which we all look forward to.
Thanks very much, Jean Njita, National Information Officer in charge at the United Nations Information Center in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Goodbye.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.